Hey everybody, Christina here. Okay, we are on the final pause and practice for chapter 4. So this is Excel pause and practice 4-3, and you will need your previous file from E4-2. And there's a little note in our instructions that when you open this file, you may have a security warning that just says external data connections have been disabled. You can just enable the content. We know that there were external data connections because we created them in that last exercise. So if you don't get that security warning, no big deal. You can just jump to step number 4. And all right, so we're going to jump in and we're going to use Flash Fill to create an email address column and to remove duplicates. And our instructions let us know that we're going to select the Flash Fill Worksheet tab down at the very bottom. And then we're going to click cell C5. And in that, where you have an email address we're going to type, it's b.francine@ourcompany.com. B. Okay, and once you have that email typed, you can just click enter. And then we're going to select cell C6. It's already selected for us after we hit enter. And you can just type the A to start the second address. And you'll see the flash fill suggested list. We're going to press enter if your flash fill didn't show up. Then you can go to the data tab and data tools group and you can click flash fill there. Next, we're going to type email address in cell C4. And once we have email address typed, then we're going to format the label in cell C4 with bold and center alignment. And so to do that, we'll just click on bold and then we'll click on center alignment. These are both on our home tab. And then we're going to increase the width of the email address column. So I'm going to click C, and then I'm going to go over to the format over on my home tab over to the right. And we're going to format the width of that column to 31. That way our email addresses will fit in there nicely. We're going to select cell E5, excuse me, A5. This is letter H. And we're going to start the remove duplicates command. And so if you don't remember, that's in our data tab, and it's in our data tools, and we're going to basically just choose that remove duplicates. So we're in our data tools here, and we're just going to click on and find our remove duplicates. And the remove duplicates is this little blue and white with the little tiny X on it. So when we click that, we're going to basically, oh, click, there we go. Then we're going to deselect the renter name and location boxes. So we're going to unselect location and renter name. A renter's name can appear with more than one location, but the individual will have only one email address. Then we're going to click OK. And then it lets us know we had 2 items found. So we're going to click OK. It's going to remove those for us. Next, we're going to use the left function code to display a code prefix. And so this is going to be number 5. So go ahead and take a moment, get yourself ready, and we'll start number 5 together. To do that, we're going to click the Catalog Codes Sheet tab down at the bottom. We're going to click cell number F5. And we're going to click the text button. Now, this is in our formulas tab. So we're going to go click formulas, and then it's in our functions library. We used this a little while ago. So we're going to click that text tab, and then we're going to find and click left, L-E-F-T. And then we're going to click cell B5 as the argument for the text box. So we'll go in and we'll grab B5 for our text box. And on our num chars, we're going to type 3. So the number of characters is what that stands for. And then we'll click OK. The first result is GAL, 3 characters from the city name. So we're going to copy that formula to cells F6 all the way to F28. And so if you remember to copy a formula, we're going to hold our insertion point over at the bottom right-hand side of the cell, and we're going to just drive it down to F28. Let's see here, there we go. And it copies that formula that we set up all the way down to the bottom. Next, we're going to use the len or len function to count the characters. So we're going to select the pop-ups sheet tab. So we'll go down to the bottom and click that sheet tab. We're going to select cell G5. And then we're going to click our text button, which is again in our formulas and our function library. We're going to find and click on len, L-E-N. And then we're going to click cell F5 as the argument for our text box. So our insertion point is in that text box. I'm going to scoot us over a little bit, and we're going to click F5 there. And then we're going to click OK. And we can see our result here is 42. It pops in there for us as well. So we're going to copy that formula all the way down to G28. And so that basically tells us the characters that we're working with. Next, in number 7, we're going to create a pivot table. So we need to be on our Rentals tab down at the bottom, and we're going to click cell A5, and then we're going to click the Recommended Pivot Tables button. So this is actually on our Insert tab, and then directly under where it says Insert, we've got our Recommended Pivot Tables. And so we're going to locate and click the sum of average 225 by state. So we can see this one is our first one there. We're just going to click OK, and then we're going to name that worksheet tab Pivot Table. So I'm going to click OK. It's going to pop it into a sheet for us. And then we're going to name that sheet. You can see that it says sheet 1 down at the bottom. So I'm just going to rename this sheet. And to do that, I just right-clicked on the sheet name. I'm going to click that rename, and then we're going to type pivot table with no space. Okay, and then you can press enter when you're done. Next, we're going to add a field into our pivot table. So we're on number 8, letter A. So we're going to verify that a cell in the pivot table is selected. Doesn't matter which one. So we're just going to click a cell. And then we're going to drag the days rented last year field from the choose fields to add that report to the group of values in the area in the pivot table. And you can see this in the picture in your instructions on 4-81. So take just a moment to look at that, and then we'll do that step together. Okay, so I've got a filled, highlighted, or clicked, it doesn't matter which one, and my pivot table fills is open. Now what I'm going to do is you can see my cursor is kind of the little 4-pointed or 4-arrowed compass point. I'm going to click on days rented last year, and I'm going to drag that down to the values area in the pivot table fields pane below the sum of average 225. So here's where I'm going with this information down in this bottom right-hand corner. So you're literally just going to take it and you're going to drag it down there and just let go of your mouse once you've clicked it in. And so then we've added that into the values. You can see it added into our table. Next, we're going to move to step number 9, which is format the value fields in a pivot table. So we're going to right-click cell B3. So we'll right-click that. And then we're going to choose Value Field Settings. And once we do that, we're going to click Number Format and set the currency format with 0 decimal places. So let's take a moment and do that. And so we're going to click our number format down at the bottom, and we're going to choose currency as already selected. And then we're going to, oh, it's already at 0 decimal points too. So we're good to go there. We'll just click OK. And then we're going to right click in cell. We'll click OK one more time. And then we're going to right click on cell 3 and we'll do the same thing. We'll do a value field settings. Let me move that over. We're going to choose the number format with 0 decimal places and the comma as the 1000 separator. So we'll do number format, number, 0 decimal places. And we're going to use the one with the comma separator, which is here. And then we'll press OK and OK again. And you can see we've got our 6,129 with the comma at the 1000s place. Next, we're going to edit labels in a pivot table. So we're going to select cell B3 and we're going to type revenue and press enter. So we're basically changing this name. And then we're going to edit the label in cell C3 to days rented. Perfect. And then we're going to auto fit columns A and or A2C. So we can just highlight all 3 of those and click on the middle of any of them, and that will auto fit our columns for us. Next, we'll move on to step number 11, which is where we're going to format our pivot table. So we'll select cell A3, and we're going to click the More button display, which is on our Design tab. So we'll go up to our top, and we're going to click our More button. And it asks us to choose the white pivot style light 22, which is on the 4th row. Let's see, white pivot style light 22. Okay, let's find that one. We're getting closer. Okay, I think it's going to be this one. Okay, white pivot style 22. So it's in your second row, the 4th one on there. And then we're going to select cells A4 to C11. So we'll do A4 all the way down to C11, and we're going to apply all borders. And so again, that's on our Home tab. You can do the drop down and select all borders there. And that wraps up number 11. So we're going to move on to number 12, which is make a copy of the pivot table and leave its name as pivot table 2. So to do that, all we're going to do is down on our pivot table sheet name, we're going to right click and we're going to say move or copy. And then it's going to say, where are we going to move it? We're just going to move it to the same place. And we want to just create a copy. So we'll click OK. And then you can see it's named Pivot Table 2 now. So we've got a copy of our original and our original and our previous one there. Next, we're going to adjust the fields in a pivot table. So we'll get ready and we'll move in to step number 13. So on number 13, it wants us to be working in Pivot Table 2 sheet, so the one we just copied, and we're going to select cell A3 on that Pivot 2 sheet, and that's going to display our Pivot Table Fields pane over to the right. We're going to drag the revenue field out of the values area in the pane and into the worksheet. This field is removed then from the pivot table group. So let's get our revenue and we're going to drag it into the worksheet, and that removes it from our group. And once that's removed, we're going to go down to letter C, which says we're going to select the rental name box in our pivot table fields. So that's over to the right. And then it's going to display for us in our rows area. So you can see that we just added that rental name information there for us. Okay, moving on, we're going to go to step 14. We're going to display a slicer for a pivot table. So we're going to click the Insert Slicer button, which is on our Pivot Table Analyze tab. So this is up at the top of our screen. Let's click that. And then we're going to be looking in the Filter group, and we'll choose our Insert Slicer. And then for our slicer, we need to choose the state name, and then we're going to click OK. On letter C, it says we're going to select and drag the slicer window to position its top left corner at cell D3. So we're just going to left click once we've got our insertion point there. And it says we're going to the top of cell D3. And then we're going to create a pivot chart. So we're going to select cell A3. And then we'll click the pivot chart button, which is again on our pivot table, analyze. And then it's going to be in the tools group. And you can see we have our pivot chart over to the right. We're going to select the clustered bar from that group. Whoa, there we go. Okay, so we're going to go down to bar and we're going to select that clustered bar. All right, that is the one we want. And so then we're going to click OK. Now, our chart goes right on the top, our chart object, and so that's not a problem. We're going to click the chart title, and then we're just going to delete that title, and then we'll adjust where our chart is in just a moment. Okay, so we have deleted our title. Next, we're going to position that chart object so that its top left corner is at cell D, like David, 19. So I'm just going to start moving my chart and we'll get down to D19. 18, 19. All right, and you can highlight row 19 to make sure you're on track, that it's at the right one. Then we're going to size the chart to reach cell N like Nancy and 40. And so I'm going to click to activate my chart. And so we're going to go to N. So I'll stretch it out to N first. And then I'm going to scroll down so that I can see 40, which is just a little more than our chart information. Okay, so I'll click row 40 and we are there. Next, we're going to filter the data in a pivot chart. So we're going to click the State Filter button in the chart. So that's where we're going next. And to do that, you may need to click on your chart object. So if your chart object is not highlighted with the dots around it, you may have to click into it so that you can choose the State Filter, which is over on the left side of our chart object. So we're going to click that. And then we're going to click the Select All box. And so that's basically going to unselect everything. And then we have a few states that we want to select. So we're going to select Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, and Tennessee. So once we've gotten those clicked, we're going to click OK. And then we can see that our data is filtered. So we just used our state filter there to filter our data. Then we're moving on to step 18, which is we are finished. And so I'm going to go up to the top of my sheet as we normally do. So up in that cell A1, we're going to save and close our workbook, and you have finished up Pause and Practice 4-2. Now, on step 19, it says complete challenge project 4-8 for additional work in this workbook. For our class, we're stopping our Pause and Practice here. But if you want additional practice in pivot tables in this workbook, you're welcome to do that challenge project. All right, folks, in class, don't forget to submit your Pause and Practice, the final file 4-3, into our course shell. Okay, take care.